Okay, let's dive in. Today we're looking at this really interesting multi-source analysis. It's called 2025 Society at the Crossroads, Technology, Culture, and Community in the Algorithmic Age.
Right.
And our mission really is to sift through all these sources it pulls from McKinsey, WHO, IPCC, Fed data, you name it, and just pull out the key insights for you.
Basically shortcutting the path to understanding what's shaping daily life right now in 2025.
Exactly, because it feels like everything's changing so fast.
It really is. And the analysis argues we're at this major crossroads. You've got tech acceleration, economic shifts, changes in social awareness. They're not separate tracks, they're all converging.
Intersecting and reshaping, well, everything. How we work, connect, even how we feel, right?
Precisely. And it highlights four kind of dominant trends for this moment.
Okay, what are they?
So first, there's the incredible speed of AI adoption in workplaces, just unprecedented.
Okay.
Second, those persistent economic pressures, inflation, yeah, but also the massive growth of the gig economy.
Still feeling that pinch.
Yeah, definitely. Third is the, frankly, urgent need for climate resilience. Adaptation isn't future stuff anymore, it's now.
Right, immediate.
And fourth, a really growing recognition of mental health as a core societal issue, not just individual, but societal.
That's a heavy list, but yeah, it feels incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
Didn't the analysis kick off with a kind of surprising finding right away?
It did. It's one of those stats that makes you pause. They found this. They call it a readiness gap.
Okay.
It turns out employees, regular workers, are adopting AI tools in their day-to-day jobs much, much faster than leadership realizes or expects.
How much faster?
Get this, 13% of workers are already using generative AI for at least 30% of their tasks right now.
Wait, 13%? Doing almost a third of their work with AI today?
Exactly, and that figure, it's 3 times higher than what executives estimated their employees were doing.
Wow, so people are just figuring it out on the fly, while the bosses are still planning rollouts.
Pretty much. Employees are building the future of work from the ground up, in a way, while the C-suite is often still in strategy meetings.
That's fascinating. And this analysis, you said it draws on a lot of sources.
Yeah, it's very data-driven. Real-time trends mixed with big research from places like McKinsey, Pew, WHO, the Fed, Bureau of Labor Statistics, World Bank, IPCC, NOAA, the APA, loads of others.
Gives it some weight.
It makes it feel pretty comprehensive, yeah.
Okay, let's jump into that first big trend then. Work and economic security.
Yeah.
The AI-human workplace transformation. You said the AI adoption pace is breakneck.
It really is. You've got 92% of companies saying they plan to increase AI investment. Huge number.
92%, okay.
But, and this is the contrast, only 1% describe their current AI use as mature.
Only 1%.
Yeah. So massive intention, but actual deep integration. Very early days for most organizations. And that feeds right back into that readiness gap. Employees are often way ahead of the company's formal plan.
And this AI wave is hitting at the same time the gig economy is just exploding.
Absolutely. It's not a niche anymore. We're talking 59 million Americans freelancing. That's, what, 36% of the workforce?
36%.
And it's projected to hit 86.5 million by 2027. Now, the analysis does note, 4.7 million independent workers made over $100,000 in 2024. So there's potential there.
Big potential for some.
But it also points to income polarization, high earners, but also a lot of people just scraping by.
And that pressure is definitely intensified by the cost of living, which just hasn't really let up.
Exactly. Inflation might be around 2.4% now, which sounds okay on its own.
Right.
But the key thing is, prices overall are still nearly 24% higher than before the pandemic.
Oof, yeah, that sustained hit.
That constant pressure on purchasing power, it's a huge reason people are turning to gig work, often just for supplemental income, to patch the gaps. The analysis found something like 62% of U.S. adults make some money from platforms at least weekly.
62%. Wow. Okay, so bring this down to the listener. How does this mix fast AI, economic stress, gig work actually change the rhythm of work for you listening? What does it look like day to day?
Well, AI is becoming this kind of co-pilot. In customer service, for example, you've got AI coaches analyzing calls, giving feedback, and the results are pretty stark. 10% less time per call, 20% higher customer satisfaction.
Just from the AI coaching?
Seems so. And for knowledge workers, people using computers all day. Almost half, 47%, expect AI to fundamentally change 30% or more of their work within the next year, helping draft things, analyze data.
Taking on some of the load?
Exactly. And the gig economy side. That completely changes your relationship with time and money. You're juggling multiple income streams. The average freelance rate in North America is decent, around $47.71 an hour.
Okay.
But, and it's a big but, 57% of those contractors work more than 40 hours a week. So that flexibility everyone talks about often means longer, less predictable hours, not necessarily freedom.
Right, not the 4-day week dream for most.
Not usually, no. What we're seeing emerge are these genuinely hybrid human-AI workflows. It's not always replacement. Think healthcare. AI does the initial scan analysis, but the doctor makes the call with the patient.
Human oversight.
Crucial. Or finance. AI crunches market data super fast, freeing up the advisor to actually talk to clients, build relationships. Manufacturing. AI predicts when machines might fail before they break down.
And these economic pressures, they seep into everything, right? Beyond the 9 to 5 or the gig hours.
Absolutely. They reshape big life decisions. Housing, for instance. Higher costs mean more multi-generational living. It's becoming more common out of necessity.
Right.
The sharing economy gets more attractive, ride shares, tool libraries. And priorities shift for workers. Flexibility, the ability to control your schedule, becomes incredibly valuable. People might even take slightly less pay for that autonomy because they need it to juggle gigs or family needs.
So for you listening, maybe you're thinking about moving back home for a bit, or maybe you have signed up for that delivery app just to cover bills this month. It's becoming normal.
And at the community level, you see these spatial divides appearing. AI work often needs top-tier internet-specific infrastructure, so it concentrates in big cities, the metro hubs.
Leaving rural areas potentially further behind.
That's the risk, yeah.
Right.
Exclusion from those high-value jobs.
And the gig economy. It creates online communities, sure, around platforms, but often without the basics, the safety nets.
That's a huge gap. Only 40% of U.S. gig workers have health insurance. Think about that impact on community health, access to care. It's significant.
Local businesses are in a tough spot too, aren't they? Using gig workers gives them flexibility, which they need.
Especially in this economy. But it can also mean less stable jobs overall in the community, maybe weakening those traditional local employer ties.
Which leads us to some real tensions here. Is AI a helper or a replacement? The enhancer versus displacer idea.
It's a core tension. You see 73% of experts feeling positive about AI boosting job performance.
Okay, that's high.
But then 64% of the general U.S. public believe AI will mean fewer jobs overall. That's a massive gap in perception and a source of real anxiety.
Understandably. And skills are becoming obsolete faster than ever.
The estimate is 40% of core job skills will change by 2025. That's stunningly fast.
40%.
And while almost half of employees, 48%, say training is the key to navigating this.
This makes sense.
Nearly half also say they only get moderate support from their employer for that actual training. So there's a disconnect.
Another gap.
Then there's the fundamental gig work bargain. Flexibility, yes, but at what cost? Usually, it's the loss of security health insurance, paid time off, retirement plans, even basic protections against being fired unfairly.
And that hits some people harder than others.
Definitely. The analysis points out it disproportionately affects already vulnerable populations.
And just being dependent on these huge platforms, that creates its own risks.
Huge vulnerabilities. An algorithm change can slash your income overnight. You can get deactivated, kicked off the platform with very little explanation or recourse. And as these platforms get bigger and fewer, individual workers have less and less bargaining power.
It's a precarious setup.
Very much so.
Okay, let's shift gears. The second major force.
Yeah.
Climate resilience and adaptation. Framed here as something we need right now.
Absolutely. Not a future issue. The data's sobering. Global temps hit 1.55 degrees C above pre-industrial levels in 2024.
We crossed the 1.5 degrees C threshold, even if temporarily.
We did. And the rate of warming is accelerating 0.27 degrees C per decade between 2015 and 2024. That's unprecedented in the records we have.
And the human impact is already devastating. Displacement.
Yeah, 83.4 million people internally displaced worldwide. That's more than double just 6 years ago. And weather events are the primary driver. The analysis points to specific displacement hotspots emerging by 2030.
Wow. And it's not just temperature, right? Other physical changes.
Right. Sea level rise hit a record high rate. It basically doubled its speed compared to the 90s and early 2000s. Now it's 4.7 millimeters per year.
Okay.
Ocean heat content, which fuels extreme weather, also at record levels.
And these effects aren't uniform, are they? Very regional.
Hugely varied. Projections show potentially 86 million internal climate migrants just in sub-Saharan Africa by 2050. 49 million in East Asia Pacific.
They're massive numbers.
And even in colder places, you see below average sea ice in the Arctic and Antarctic in 2024. Glaciers melting fast in Scandinavia, Svalbard, the Andes.
So adaptation is becoming part of daily life for many. How does that look for you, the listener? What might you actually see or do?
It's things like backup power becoming more common generators, batteries, water storage, microgrids popping up, especially in vulnerable places like California, the Gulf Coast. Those are local power grids that can keep running if the main grid goes down.
Okay.
More rain barrels, maybe. Definitely seeing shifts to drought-resistant plants in drier areas. It's becoming routine.
And the really tough one, managed retreat, moving away from the coastlines.
Yeah, that's starting to happen. It's incredibly difficult. Property values in high-risk flood zones are dropping as insurance gets impossible to afford or find.
So people are forced to make these heart-wrenching decisions about leaving homes, communities.
Exactly. And sometimes whole communities have to figure out how to relocate essential infrastructure or build very expensive flood defenses that might only buy them some time.
This is also leading to this idea of climate havens, cities positioning themselves as safer bets.
Right. Places like Duluth, Minnesota, or Buffalo, New York, they're seeing more interest, population growth even, but that brings its own pressures, straining schools, roads, housing.
It's not a simple solution.
No, and for many, adaptation is simpler, but still vital. Just paying closer attention to daily weather forecasts, relying on those sophisticated alert systems we get on our phones now.
On the community level, does facing these threats bring people together?
Sometimes, yes. It can strengthen social bonds. You see neighborhood preparedness groups forming, community gardens being valued for resilience, not just food, mutual aid networks stepping up during storms or heat waves.
But that movement of people out of risky areas into perceived havens that must strain things.
It does. It strains infrastructure in the places people move to, and it can hollow out the economies of the places people leave from.
And there's a growing appreciation for older knowledge, indigenous practices.
Yes, definitely. A recognition that traditional knowledge holds vital adaptation strategies. Things like nature-based solutions, restoring wetlands to absorb floodwater, using traditional farming methods that conserve water, they're being seen as really valuable alongside modern tech.
And new jobs are cropping up around this too.
For sure. Weatherizing homes, installing solar panels, climate adaptation consulting. These are growth industries now, born out of necessity.
But this adaptation process isn't smooth. There must be conflicts, tensions.
Huge tensions. Resource allocation is a big one. The billions needed for seawalls or relocating towns competes directly with funding for schools, hospitals, everything else. Who pays? Who benefits?
Of difficult choices.
And managed retreat itself faces enormous resistance. Political, emotional, people are deeply tied to place. There are legal complexities, and the grief of losing a community's identity is profound.
And inequality plays a massive role here too, doesn't it?
Starkly. Wealthier communities can afford the best defenses, the infrastructure upgrades. Low-income communities, often in the most vulnerable spots physically, just don't have the resources. It creates this dangerous climate apartheid almost.
Wow.
And even when people do migrate for climate reasons, it can create friction in the places they move to. Strain on services, potential integration challenges between newcomers and long-term residents.
Okay, let's move to the third trend. Digital identity and fragmented realities.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's about trust and who we are online.
Exactly. And it's tightly linked to the economy again. Think about tokenizing real-world assets, putting ownership of things like art, property, even carbon credits onto a blockchain. That market could hit $30 trillion by 2030.
30 trillion, okay, that's enormous.
But for that to work, you need rock-solid, verifiable digital identities. So the tech focus in 2025 is on making that happen, scaling verification, ensuring privacy, meeting regulations for things like Web3, that decentralized internet idea.
Making sure you are who you say you are online, basically, but for high-stakes stuff.
Precisely. Verifiable attestations, digital proofs, and getting different blockchains to talk to each other seamlessly. That's key.
But interestingly, the analysis points to this counter-movement happening at the same time. The analog revival.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Vinyls come back, film photography, people buying typewriters. It's not just nostalgia.
That's driving a bit.
The report suggests it's a conscious reaction to the downsides of digital life. Concerns about privacy, the feeling that digital things are fleeting, the lack of physical touch. It's a desire for things that feel more real, more permanent, more tactile.
While at the same time, we're drowning in digital platforms, creating these silos.
Exactly. Over 1,000 gig platforms alone. Plus hyper-personalized news feeds, social media. Everything's tailored, which can be good, but it also isolates us in our own information bubbles.
So for you listening, how does this digital identity stuff show up day to day?
Verification is becoming routine, often invisible. Biometrics, facial recognition to unlock your phone, fingerprint for payments, maybe iris scans for building access. AI is working behind the scenes on fraud detection. It's convenient.
But the privacy implications.
Huge. How much data are we handing over? Who controls it? Where is it stored? Big questions.
And there's this idea of self-sovereign identity, where you control your data.
That's gaining traction. Using blockchain so you hold the keys to your own identity, granting specific permissions, it's potentially very empowering.
But may be complicated for the average person.
It requires some technical understanding, yeah. That's a barrier currently.
In those niche digital communities you mentioned, great for finding your tribe, but maybe bad for broader understanding.
That's the double-edged sword. Highly relevant content, yes. But you might miss out entirely on different viewpoints, different realities, if the algorithm only feeds you what you already like or agree with, trapped in the echo chamber.
And the analog revival, how does that change routines?
It's about making active choices. Putting on a record instead of asking Alexa. Taking photos on film, accepting the delay and imperfection. Journaling by hand. It seems to be about seeking slower, more intentional moments to balance out the digital speed.
What about community-level effects? Digital verification enabling new things.
Yeah, blockchain allows for new models of organization. Peer-to-peer lending, shared ownership of assets, transparent community governance. It opens up possibilities.
But the flip side is that fragmented reality thing, making it harder to agree on facts or even have shared experiences.
Definitely a challenge. The decline of local news, the rise of hyper-individualized algorithmic feeds, it erodes that common ground communities need. How do you have a town hall meeting if everyone's operating from a different set of information?
But the analog revival might actually help local communities.
In some ways, yes. Supporting independent bookstores, record shops, repair cafes. These are physical places fostering face-to-face interaction and local economic ties, strengthening the physical fabric of a community.
And building trust. That's getting trickier. Technology helps and hurts.
Incredibly complex now. Tech enables amazing security features, but also incredibly sophisticated deception, deepfakes being the prime example. Communities are struggling. How do you know if that video is real? Who do you trust online? We urgently need new norms, better digital literacy. For everyone, it's not just a job skill, it's citizenship.
And the tensions here. Privacy versus convenience is a big one.
Always. How much data are you willing to trade for things to be easy?
And the digital divide gets deeper. Not just about access, but about having the right devices, the right skills for this new verification world.
Exactly. It risks leaving behind people without the latest smartphone or reliable, fast internet, intensifying existing inequalities.
The authenticity challenge.
Yeah.
Deep fakes getting better than detection, that's scary.
It undermines trust across the board, in news, government, even personal communications, a huge challenge for community cohesion.
And generational gaps.
Yeah.
Younger folks may be more comfortable with biometrics, older folks more wary.
That can create friction, yeah. Different attitudes towards privacy, technology adoption. It can lead to misunderstandings within families and communities about how to navigate this stuff.
Okay, final big force. Mental well-being in accelerated times. This feels like it's finally getting the attention it deserves, but the scale is daunting.
It's immense. The analysis cites nearly 1 billion people globally with mental disorders back in 2019, 14% of adolescents. It's a leading cause of disability.
1 billion people.
And the pandemic poured fuel on the fire. Depression and anxiety spiked over 25% in that first year alone.
And technology's response. We're seeing AI therapy apps everywhere now.
A rapid proliferation. Apps like Wobot, Wysa, they offer 24/7 chat support, mood tracking, and there is some early data suggesting potential effectiveness. Wobot users reported reduced symptoms in just 2 weeks in one study.
But people still prefer humans, mostly.
Preference studies show that yes. A German study found only 8% preferred AI over a human therapist. Cost, though, was a huge factor for many more important than human versus AI for about 55%.
Interesting. And gender differences, too.
Yeah, women tended to prioritize a human connection while men weighted cost and wait times more heavily. General trends, of course.
And this links straight back to work, especially remote work burnout.
Absolutely. Burnout is hitting remote workers hard. 66% of remote tech pros, a staggering 82% of all U.S. remote workers report burnout.
82%.
Yeah. And digital fatigue, just being drained by screens, affects over 40% of UK consumers, especially younger ones. Remote workers also say they work longer hours, feel pressured to be always on.
It's taking a toll.
A serious toll.
So for you listening, how are mental health resources showing up in daily life now?
AI therapy bots are becoming, for some, a routine first step. 24/7 access, less stigma maybe, good for mood tracking, basic support, sometimes crisis intervention.
And monitoring through wearables. Fitbits tracking stress, sleep.
That's integrating too, giving personalized insights based on your body's data, again with privacy caveats.
And workplaces are finally starting to address burnout more seriously.
They're having to. We're seeing more formal wellness programs talk about right to disconnect policies, even mandated time off in some cases. A recognition that it's a business issue, not just personal.
And people are actively seeking offline connection to counter the digital overload.
Yes, that's part of the analog revival too. Connection clubs, hobby groups, spaces designed for face-to-face interaction are gaining popularity as an antidote to isolation and screen fatigue.
Community level effects. More awareness, less stigma.
Definitely progress there. Public campaigns are changing conversations. Things like mental health, first aid training, peer support networks are becoming more common.
But the digital divide hits here too. Access to those AI tools isn't equal.
No. Rural areas, low-income communities often lack the reliable internet or devices needed. So the people who might benefit most can be left out.
And workplace mental health. It's not just about the individual employee, it affects the whole community.
Right. Burnout impacts productivity, raises healthcare costs. It's an economic issue for the community, not just the company.
Intergenerational differences again. Younger people may be quicker to try an app, older preferring a counselor.
That creates challenges for designing systems that work for everyone. How do you integrate the digital and the traditional effectively?
And the key tensions in this space. Access versus depth seems crucial.
It is. AI bots offer amazing accessibility, 24/7 availability, lower cost, but can they really replicate the nuance, the empathy, the relationship you build with a human therapist? Probably not, at least not yet.
Privacy concerns must be huge here. Sharing deeply personal data with an app.
Magnified, absolutely. Regulation is lagging way behind the technology when it comes to health data, especially mental health.
And therapists themselves.
Yeah.
Are they worried about being replaced?
There's definitely professional displacement anxiety. As the AI gets better, what does the future hold for human practitioners? It's a valid concern.
And finally, that paradox. Using tech to solve problems potentially caused by tech.
The digital addiction paradox, yeah. Reaching for a wellness app on the same device that bombards you with notifications and contributes to anxiety, it's a complex loop.
Okay, let's try and pull these threads together. The core argument of the analysis is that 2025 is this crossroads, because these four trends, AI work, climate, digital identity, mental health, are tangled up together. They're not separate.
Exactly. They intersect and amplify each other. Think about economic stress, job insecurity, cost of living. It doesn't just make finances tight, it directly fuels burnout and digital fatigue.
Right, constantly hustling online, managing platforms.
Yeah.
It wears you down.
And then layer climate impacts on top of economic inequality. Communities struggling economically are often the least equipped to handle floods or heat waves. They likely also lack access to the new AI job skills and the digital mental health tools. It compounds disadvantage.
And climate migration. That puts pressure on mental health services in the places people move to.
Absolutely. Adding strain to already stretched systems.
And that analog revival makes so much sense in this context. It's not just random nostalgia.
It's framed as a direct human response. A conscious choice for physical, tangible experiences, reading a book, meeting face-to-face, precisely because tech acceleration and its impact on well-being feel overwhelming. It's about managing mental health, finding real connection, pushing back against the pace.
The analysis talks about a resilience paradox here, how technology cuts both ways.
Yeah, it's a key insight. Technology both enables and undermines resilience, personal and community.
How so?
Well, AI platforms can help groups organize super quickly, amazing coordination potential.
Right.
But the algorithms can also push us into filter bubbles, fragmenting shared understanding. Remote work gives flexibility, but increases isolation and burnout.
Right.
Climate tech gives us better warnings. but maybe makes us rely less on checking on our actual neighbors. Mental health apps improve access, but might substitute for vital human relationships. It's this constant tension.
So how do communities navigate this paradox successfully, according to the analysis?
The ones doing best seem to embrace hybrid approaches. They use tech strategically, but also fiercely protect human connection.
Like what?
Using tech for logistics, maybe, but ensuring there are still face-to-face meetings. Using AI to assist human judgment, not replace it. Keeping both digital and analog channels open for communication. It's about balance.
And inequality runs through all of this.
Every single trend. Access to AI tools is unequal, climate security is unequal, mental health resources are unequal, geographic divides, income divides.
And basic economic inequality is kind of the bedrock underneath it all.
It really is. Having a stable, well-paying job buffers you against so many of these pressures. It gives you resources to adapt, learn new skills, access healthcare. Gig work often leaves you exposed on all fronts. These inequalities aren't separate, they stack up, creating cumulative advantage or disadvantage. Addressing them needs joined-up thinking.
So based on all this, the analysis projects 3 possible paths forward, 3 scenarios for, say, 2028.
Yeah, 3 potential trajectories based on how these trends play out and how we respond. They aren't predictions, more like plausible future.
Okay, what's scenario 1?
That's balanced integration, the optimistic view. The readiness gap closes, companies invest in training, we actually see broad productivity gains from humans and AI working together. New systems like portable benefits make gig work more secure. The analog revival finds a healthy balance with digital life. Communities develop effective, equitable climate plans. Mental health integrates AI tools smoothly alongside strong human care. The digital divide shrinks.
Sounds pretty good. What's scenario 2?
Tiered realities. This is the inequality scenario. Technology benefits concentrate in specific cities and income brackets. AI creates wealth, but mostly for a few.
A bigger divide.
Much bigger. Climate adaptation becomes a luxury good. The gig economy booms, but without protections, creating mass insecurity. Burnout and mental health crises deepen. The analog revival is just for the rich who can afford to disconnect. Climate havens become exclusive enclaves. Mental health care splits premium AI for some, overwhelm traditional services for the rest. Social cohesion frays badly.
Ouch. Okay, and scenario 3.
Community renaissance. This one's interesting. It suggests localism strengthens, partly because larger institutions struggle to cope with all these pressures.
So communities step up.
Exactly. Self-reliance becomes key. The analog revival really takes off as people reject the overwhelming digital world. You see communities creating their own solutions. Local AI cooperatives, neighborhood resilience networks, peer-to-peer mental health support, maybe even community-owned gig platforms. Geographic inequality might still exist, but it looks more like different types of local success, rather than just winners and losers.
Fascinating. 3 very different futures.
Stemming from the choices made now.
Right. So pulling it all together, 2025 really does feel like a crossroads. These forces, tech, economy, climate, well-being, they're all converging, shaping everything.
And navigating this moment holds huge potential, massive opportunities, but also really significant risks, especially that risk of deepening inequality across every dimension we've talked about.
And the analysis makes it clear. The choices made now by policymakers, by businesses, by community leaders, and by individuals, but you listen to these choices over the next few years, will really steer us towards one of those futures by 2028.
So maybe the final thought to leave with everyone, thinking about that resilience paradox, how tech connects and fragments us, is this. How will you choose to strike that balance between the digital and the analog in your own life, in your own community, to build the kind of resilience and connection we need for the years ahead?